said, my name is Jessica Asch, and I am a creative arts therapist. Specifically, I'm a drama therapist.
Some survivors of the high school shooting in Parkland, Florida last February spent their summer at Camp Shine, a free arts therapy camp there.
But first, they needed a therapist. Jessica Asch was in their high school class too.
Why do they choose drama therapy over another type of therapy?
When we take our trauma, or when we take our pain, or something that's happened, when we create a story, when we create a scene between mom and daughter, create roles, right?
That's
like we create.
Scary.
One aspect of my job is that I help people tell, own, and take back their story.
I flew down to Florida from Paris. You fly down. We're gonna be on NPR. We're like in this with literally like a couple weeks after all their friends were murdered.
We're on location to where the trauma happened. So the program was happening at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, which is very intense to have a program be at the place where the trauma occurred.
Welcome to Whimsy Grit, where we help artists learn all about creative process through to promotion. Today, I have a very special guest, Jessica Asch. Jessica has worked in a variety of settings with many different populations that include veterans struggling with complex PTSD, adolescents in the juvenile justice system, adults struggling with substance abuse, Holocaust survivors, individuals living with chronic mental illness, and survivors of school mass shootings. So we have a lot to learn from Jessica Asch, and I am so thrilled to bring her on. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Meg. I'm so glad to be here.
Yes, welcome. So you are based in Philadelphia, and I'm in France, and we have known each other. Since we were 13, we went to Baltimore School for the Arts together, where we studied acting. But what I wanted to know from you, going to your origin story, how would you say Baltimore kind of shaped you as a creative person from the start? And at what point did you know you wanted to be, or you felt that you were an artist?
Well, I mean, I love Baltimore. Baltimore will forever and always have such a special place in my heart. I mean, Baltimore is like buzzing with creativity constantly. And I was interested in dancing and singing and acting from a really young age. So I was my parents just put me in those extracurricular activities. And so I just was exposed to it at such a young age. I was in a theater company with this woman named Jill DeArmond, who you know too, who I would later follow to New York. But she was like my first acting teacher at 8 years old. And so I was, from the age of 8 years old, I was like in plays, in theater, in community, in groups. And I just fell in love with the process of like family and creating something. And then I went to
Yeah, sorry.
I went to a creative magnet school, Subbrook Art Center, which I think now is closed, and then Baltimore School for the Arts. So I just continued to seek out creative education and creative extracurricular activities for my entire life in Baltimore.
So as we're reading, through your bio, you obviously work with people who are quite, you've worked with people who are the most traumatized in, some could say, the entire world, through to, your private practice where it's potentially, more everyday problems. How do you feel, like, why did you choose to go into that? Because you started as, as an actress and as a dancer, and what made you want to kind of deal with all of that heavy shit? as we could say.
Yeah. Um, so even though when I was younger, I didn't really have the language for this, school was really hard for me. I suffered like school is like one of like the worst periods of my life just because I was a kid who was really neurodivergent and nobody had it was the late 80s, early 90s. No one really understood it the way that they understand it now. And
Mm.
I school was
And
really traumatic
and
for
what does
me.
that mean, neurodivergent?
Yeah, so neurodivergent is like a term that mental health professionals use, which is kind of like operating under like um, there's to be neurodivergent. There's mental health diagnoses that you can have. There's learning differences, learning challenges, which is kind of more of where I fall under. So I have all of them. I'd like to say now I'm dyslexic. I have a visual spatial disability. I have
Mm.
ADHD, which I actually don't really think it's quite the right diagnosis. But I was
Yeah.
diagnosed when I was younger. Um,
Why don't you
I
think that's the right diagnosis? I'm just curious.
Oh, because I think that I was really anxious, and I think that they mistook my anxiety for ADHD because school was
Mm.
traumatizing for me. So I was anxious constantly at school, and I was a C student. I was like a C plus D student. And but no one really knew how to teach me. I mean, I have a very different view of education now and the way that we need to teach people.
Yeah.
Um, and I was a different kind of learner. I'm a kinesthetic learner, which means that I learn through my body and I learn through touch and I learn through getting up out of my chair, right?
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, for the people who are watching this, like, us having grown up together, I can speak from experience that I never experienced you like that. I know that you brought that like to I mean, I just find it so interesting how, that's all like you said, you have all these diagnoses but somebody looking at you or somebody, because we went to an arts high school as well, for me, you were always like the star student. I would get the good grades in, the classes. Um, but nobody cared about that in our school. And you would be, just the one that would wow the people on stage with your emotion and with your, your depth of character. So it's interesting um, yeah, like that, it was so traumatizing for you up to the point, and then then we won't talk about maybe we will talk about it, but what happened actually at the high school with one of the teachers, but, you know, how do you feel like that has shaped, like, your art? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, back to kind of like the original question, I think what ended up happening for me is that at a very young age, I realized I had all these feelings and I had all of this emotion and I had all of this rage of feeling different and misunderstood and like an outsider. Um, and once I realized, oh, I can express this. I can express all, and kids don't know what to do with their feelings. This is why they act out. This is why there's behavioral stuff because your brain isn't developed. You don't know what kids don't know, adolescents don't know what to do. Um, but once I realized that, oh, I could channel all of this pain through a role or a storyline. This
Mhm.
was where I could put it. This is where I could channel it. And I didn't, I felt it. And once I felt it, I was like, it was so helpful for me to put these feelings somewhere creatively.
So, at what point then is it from basically from 13 or maybe even before that, would you say maybe
Yeah.
like when you started acting, until what age did it switch and you decided that you no longer wanted to act on stage, but you wanted to use that to help other people?
Yeah. So after high school, Baltimore School for the Arts. I went to a University of the Arts in Philadelphia and got a BFA in theater. And then I went to New York um, for 20 years. And I think I tried to act for like the first like 6 years. I was around incredible artists. I was around a lot of like the Labyrinth Theater Company, and I had all of these like amazing creative mentors all
Philip Seymour
around.
Hoffman,
Philip Seymour Hoffman, yeah, John Patrick
John
Shanley, like
Ortiz.
Anna Ortiz, like all of these like incredible, talented human beings. And I really feel like they shaped a lot of who I am. But what I think started happening to me was that like, oh, I knew very quickly that I did not have it in me, like the hustle, and the auditions and being rejected. And I saw the people around me, Oscar winners, Golden Globe, like who, I mean, and I watched how they worked, and and it was incredible and inspiring. And I just like had a feeling that that wasn't quite my path. And I
Mhm.
started, I heard about the drama therapy program at NYU. A friend said to me, Jess, I think that like you're beginning to talk about like theater and performance as a vehicle to heal, as a way to heal. And this is a real thing, and you can get your master's in it. And I looked into it, and it was like once I realized that it was like a legitimate thing, it was like a real thing, there was no
Yeah.
going back. It's like this is what I'm doing with my life.
So, w- what tell people who don't know like what you do? Because I think, I've said it in the bio, but I think that it's important. And I'm just gonna actually switch you over here
Hmm.
so that we can look at you more. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, tell people what you do because I think it's a lot of people don't know what it is. And also, especially at the time that you were getting into this, I mean, it probably started what in the 70s, was it?
Hmm.
Like they
Drama,
first
yeah.
people drama
Hmm.
therapy, but then but even in the early 2000s, like it still wasn't really a thing. Maybe more people know about it now, but yeah, tell people like what do you do?
Yeah. So creative arts therapy is not everywhere. It tends to be in the more progressive cities in the world, not even the country, but of the world. There's many countries all over who have creative arts therapy, but it's definitely in the cities that are more progressive just for the fact that there's funding, like there's a belief system that arts that people want to give money towards the arts and that they believe in it. Um so a creative arts therapist basically is an umbrella term, and we are like psychotherapists um, who help people move through their journey through the arts. So under the umbrella of creative arts therapy, there's dance movement therapy, drama therapy, which I am, art therapy, um, and oh god, I'm missing a big one. Art, music, dance, and music.
Music, dance, theater.
Art, music, dance. Okay.
Not
I
like a
think there's
stage, like a stage manager.
though there's not officially, but there should be one. But anyways,
Yeah.
so yeah, so you go and you study usually for the most time one of those modalities. And so what I basically do is um there are a lot of times where I just will talk to people and the sessions will be just talk therapy. But I like to say that I look at the work through a creative lens, which means basically like when I'm talking to someone, I'm listening as a drama therapist. So I'm listening for the roles, I'm listening for the
Mm.
storyline, I'm listening for the metaphor. So I am listening through a drama therapy lens.
So how do
Um,
people know to go to you? Like, that's something I thought about a lot because I think a lot of people would assume that drama therapy means, um, they have to somehow be in drama. Um, but how do people find you, and why do they choose drama therapy over another type of therapy?
yeah. Um, So they can find me. A lot of this is finding me through referrals. I mean, at this point, kind of where I am in my career, I know a lot of therapists. I know a lot of creative arts therapists. I've worked with a lot of artists on Broadway. I've worked in a lot of places where I think like people will refer me just by like the work that I've done in the past. But you can
Mhm.
also find me through the NADTA, which is our the drama therapy's like home base. It lists all the drama therapists. A lot of times people will just like Google drama. I mean,
But, like,
it's kind
why
of
do they decide that's the type of therapy they want? You know what I mean?
yeah, a lot of people don't. First of all, a lot of people will just be like, I just want to talk. Well, the whole running joke is um when they find out that I'm a drama therapist, they get scared and say, like, don't make me perform my trauma or,
Yeah.
so I'm not, I won't. But I think a lot of times I think sometimes for the people that therapy has not traditionally worked for, like a regular talk therapy, they're looking for another avenue like another, I always say like it's another entry point. Like, fine, we can
Mhm.
talk all day and talk all day, but like nothing actually shifts. And I
Yeah.
think when we take our trauma or when we take our pain or something that's happened, and when we like turn it into poetry, when we give it a role and give it a monologue, when we create a story, when we create a scene between mom and daughter, right?
Mhm.
And we create
Wow.
roles, right?
That's
Like we create,
scary.
yeah. So we create
So do you play
roles.
the mom sometimes? And, like
Mhm. Sometimes I do.
okay.
But I ask them, I say, great. So when this is done, I mean, it's a process, right? Like we'll be in the writing process for a long time. And then
Oh,
I'll
wow.
say, do you want me to play a role or do you actually want to go back and forth and play both roles? It looks all different ways. But I think something that's really important that I just want to share is that, like, I think a lot of times in therapy, people need distance because pain. I mean, this is why people are
Mm.
scared to go to therapy because pain is too hard to be confronted with. So, if you creative arts therapy gives us distance to look at something a bit further away, it gives it a container, which is a safer way to process things that have happened in our life.
Has anybody ever come to you and, like, wanting to write a play about their lives or somehow wanting to work with you to work through their pain so they can get literally, like, get out a piece of art at the end?
Mm.
I mean, I know you work with Holocaust survivors and
Yes.
the next generation to do that, but
Yes, which is a
but
finished right, which is a finished product at the end of the process.
yeah. Actually, talk to us about that.
Yeah. Um, so Witness Theater is a project that I worked on for 8 years, and it's with Holocaust survivors and adolescents, and it's a 9-month program where we get a group of adolescents and a group of Holocaust survivors, and we spend the first like month just building trust because this is like an important part. None of this is going to happen if there's no trust.
Just
So
like
we
theater in general, but it's
right,
also
right.
but this is, like, real pain, so it's their
Yeah,
pain. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So there's a whole process where we build kind of group cohesion and we do like fun theater exercises and we eat together, which is so significant, especially for Holocaust survivors, because um,
Mm.
food holds such intensity. Um, there's a lot of trauma just around food and the lack of it. And so eating together is really special.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, after this month of building group cohesion, the survivors share their stories and the
Mm.
students listen. And then at the end, I take all of the survivors' stories and I write a play about their life. And I cast the adolescents to be the survivors. And a lot of times the survivors are on stage, kind of on the side, like narrating their story, depending on if they're able to actually sit up and participate in that way. So in that way, and this is a technique in drama therapy called therapeutic theater. It's a very specific technique. I love this technique. Not all drama therapists do therapeutic theater, but this is a process which it ends with a final production.
Which so that the teenagers end up performing the lives of the Holocaust survivors with them, or are they watching with them?
Um, with them, most of the time with them, yeah.
And are there any Holocaust survivors left? I know that's
Yeah,
like
yeah, it's a great question. Like, they are, but the problem with this program, and I was in New York for 20 years, and I left 2 years ago, so I no longer do it. But yeah, part of the recruitment process was really hard because it's like, where are the Holocaust survivors? Are they even able to get to a rehearsal? Are they physically able
right.
to? And then also, are they mentally and emotionally able to? So it is very hard to run this program, but this is one of by far the highlights of my career, working on witness theater for sure.
Yeah. And so going from that, so that has a finished product, and then
Mhm.
but the private practice, people don't necessarily come like the majority would you say the majority of your patients, are they artists, or are they kind of like all over the spectrum?
All over the spectrum. I mean, I love
Okay.
working with creative people, but I work with a lot of women who are going through postpartum and infertility. I'm going through a lot of working with people who are experiencing grief, breakups, life transitions, depression, anxiety. And so often, so actually, there's never a finished product in my private practice unless,
Hmm.
yeah, there never is, unless we work on something and they say, hey, I want to take this somewhere. And I'm like, go. That's not up to me. That's you. That's up to you.
Okay, so really important question because this has come up a couple times and you're the professional, like the person to ask this for. At what point should people create privately versus at what point are they prepared to create publicly? Um, because if we're assuming which a lot of art does come from pain, like what would you advise is like a good moment to start to show your work to people?
Mm, gosh, that is such a good question. Oh, and I don't know if I have like a perfect answer for that. I usually ask people when you have a finished product, because in drama therapy, in therapeutic theater, the finished product is part of the therapy, right? So part of the therapy is
Mm,
having an audience. Part of the therapy is the witnessing and the relationship between audience member and actor, right? Like that's a relationship. And
yeah.
that's an in therapeutic theater, that's an important part of the process. Um, in many other techniques in drama therapy, there's no need for a final performance, but I think you have to ask the person, like, what do you want from this experience? Some people, like, if we go back to like daughter and mom, and like want, right, some of it is like, I just want to be able to say the thing to mom that I've never been able to say. I just want an opportunity to say it. And it's like, great,
Right.
let's write this out and like let's have you say it. um but so
But like
not
like an everyday artist who, isn't necessarily working with you either.
Mhm.
They're just like going, like you said, going through a breakup, or maybe their mom just died, and they need to create something like Alanis Morissette needs to write a song. At what point is it okay? Because I don't know, sometimes I've seen artists who have dumped their heart on social media, because social media is very dangerous in that way, is that it's like very
Yes, yes,
um and you're like,
I agree.
"Ooh, that feels like too like fresh, maybe you should wait till you've healed a little bit." Like, I mean, is it like while you're
Mhm.
going through it, is that the best time? I mean, is it
Mm,
like 2 weeks after? Is it, I mean, I'm sure you don't have like an exact formula, but
yeah.
oh, are we,
I Are we
is
frozen?
there a delay? No, you're not frozen.
No.
You're just, oh, no, I
Okay.
think it's back.
Okay, I think it's
Hold
back
on, let
too.
me just do something so I just know when to cut. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
You just cut. I was okay. Okay, I'm ready now.
no! What do you mean? What do you mean you cut? Like
You
like
cut,
the
and then I
screen?
didn't know, and then I was like, "Oh, let me try it." I thought you were doing the delay, but it was like about editing. So I fucked it up. Okay, hand clap again.
No, 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 no. Oh
Whoopee.
my god, that's hilarious.
Oh my god, so don't know about this
We're gonna keep
process.
this. We're gonna keep this part in.
Hilarious. Okay.
The wabi sabi
Yeah.
one. Okay.
Yep. Totally.
So good, right?
Totally.
So yeah. So what point would you would you advise artists to not to start sharing?
I think you have to really I think you need some like good friends, like a good support system, a good therapist to really ask the hard questions to say, "Hey, listen, this is really vulnerable, or this is really exposing, or this is like beautifully tragic. Is this something that you desperately need to release into the world? Like, what are you trying to get out of this?" I think that's a really important question, right?
Yeah.
Because once you release it into the world, like it's released into the world and it's going to be projected on, and people are going to have their opinions and they may get back to you. And like it's kind of it's yours and it's not yours anymore. It's kind of like what we like to say as drama therapists. It's yours and it's not yours. And are you
Yeah.
okay with that? And is there a smaller version, or can you share this um in maybe more of a metaphoric way? I mean, this is, listen, this is why the whole thing of like trauma, um oh my gosh, drawing the blank
Trauma
on the word.
dumping.
Yeah, not
The
trauma
trauma
dumping, but uh what's the trauma warning?
trigger warning.
Yeah, like a trigger warning. I mean, this is kind of like probably where, I mean, it's a little bit different, but regardless, I would say to ask for your friends and family or your therapist or people who you really trust to say, like, really, let's think about this before you release it. And
Mm,
also, maybe how are you gonna, something that I do with clients is I say, okay, so let's play the tape out. So, like, if you have in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, how do you think you'll feel about this piece of art being out in the world? And and that is a tough question because that's a question about hindsight. And uh, so it's a little bit of a tricky question, but I think it's an important question to help artists slow down. Just to like, let's just slow down. Um, and think
mhm.
about what it could feel like. Let's think about what this could feel like if you have a kid, and like if your kid sees this, or like if you're, or whomever, or just the older version of you sees this. And and it's
Yeah.
not bad. Like you could still say, yeah, I still want this out in the world. And then 10 years later, you could be like, and then it is what it is. And you deal with it then. I mean, may
And
have
I'm so curious because this topic has come up. It's definitely the hot topic, but AI and therapy. So you are, we're hearing stories all the time of people starting to use AI for therapy. Obviously, people are using AI thinking that they're creating when they're not. They're just typing in stuff into buttons, into the computer. What have you seen anything? What is your opinion on it? you
Mhm.
know? Has anybody come to you? Have you had experience with somebody who's, like, gone through down that rabbit hole and then come back out and been like, "Shit, Jess, can you help me?" Or Miss Ash probably. Yeah, I'd love to hear your opinion on that because it's something we haven't talked about on this show in terms of therapy specifically, you know?
Yeah. I have like there's two things that I want to touch on. The first one is that I forget where this happened, and I don't want to butcher it too much because it's very, very, very sad story. I don't know if you heard about this, but this was like was this last year or 2 years ago? This um, guy, this teenager, started relying on AI. His parents that he was just like a
Yeah.
friend, and it was. What'd you say?
I've heard about this. I think there's been a couple of incidents now, yeah.
Yeah, I think that probably is too, and it's heartbreaking where AI kind of was used as like a friend and giving like positive feedback, or just like was just like a confidant, a friend, and then as this boy started reporting that he was being bullied and that he was depressed and that there was no reason um, to live. The boy started to talk about taking his own life, and somehow AI um, essentially assisted him in doing that, helping him set up like a noose and creating the knot around his neck, and essentially like encouraged this to happen. And this boy died by suicide. And it's I don't have any words for it. It's beyond concerning. Um, this is a real, real problem. Um, I also understand that there are a lot of financial limitations to therapy. And so that
Mm,
sometimes people make these decisions because they don't have the resources um, for help. But like th- this is out of control, and it's heartbreaking for our community. So I'm so concerned about it on that front. Um,
and what exactly are you most like, that is the most dire circumstance, but what else about it are you concerned about? Like,
Well,
on
like,
the
I feel concerned, like, a lot of times, like, people will come to me, like, adolescents and young people will come to me with their diagnosis. I know so, "Hi, Jessica, I'm
Mm,
so yes, I'm diagnosed, I'm autistic, and I have borderline personality disorder, and have generalized anxiety disorder." And I said, "Oh, okay, so you have a psychiatrist who diagnosed you?" "No, no, no." "So where'd you get this information from?" "Oh, like AI, the internet." And I was like, "Oh boy." So, and Meg, I can't even tell you how many times like this has happened to me and all of my colleagues. It's really, really problematic. So, as a lot
mm,
of the people on your show have said, like in a lot of ways, there's an abundance of information, and I think it can be helpful in this. But like these were the incorrect diagnoses with all of these people, and
really?
they go around, and they kind of in a way I think I see people kind of like become it, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's a weird like placebo effect. If AI or the internet tells me this, then I'll start to slowly become it. And
Oh
so there
my
has to be
god.
like a nope. Let's start from the beginning. I'm going to help you figure this out. um so yeah, I am concerned. That is another way that I am very concerned. And I also, again, I see the problem because a lot of people don't have the resources to do it. So the internet teaches us things. Um,
Mm,
uh,
yeah.
I
Good.
do want, I do want to. There's one positive thing that I do want to say about it. So I actually, up until last week, I've never used AI.
Okay. Yeah.
And I used it last week for the very first time because I was asked to give a presentation on the relationship between inclusion and creativity. And I love this concept. I got so excited about this concept of like, oh yeah, like inclusion, creativity, like how to make a classroom more creative in order to include all the different kinds of learners that are in the classroom. I was so excited. Then I found out what I needed to do for this presentation. And I got incredibly overwhelmed. And I am not a person I'm not a social media person. I am not, I had to build this very extensive not website, very extensive PowerPoint presentation.
Mhm.
And I was just very overwhelmed with the ask and the deadline. And I was like, is this a time? I knew what I wanted to say, but I was like, is this a time where I try it for the first time? And I did. I tried it for the first time and I was like, and
Yeah.
and it was really helpful. And that was the one and only time that I've ever used it.
What did it like? How specifically did it help you?
It helped me organize my thoughts. It helped
Yeah.
me see like what I wanted to use. And some of it I didn't use, but it helped me. I mean, so yeah, I didn't just like take it and plug it in. I
Yeah.
kind of still went through the material, but it was really helpful for me because um part of being anxious, this is academia and I get really anxious around academia because that's a lot of where,
Yeah.
my trauma lives. And so AI was helpful for me in that moment.
And you get anxious because you feel um somehow inferior or like because of your
Yeah.
learning disabilities that like I'm putting words in your mouth, but
Yeah,
I know you well
exactly.
enough hopefully that like
Yeah.
that's like what you're trying to say.
Yeah, it takes
Like
me
academia.
yeah, it takes me much longer to do things like what people could read in but like for every one page, for every 5 pages that a person can read, I can kind of read 1 page. I'm dyslexic, so I'm always having to like move things around and conceptualize in a different way and just like processing. I just process much, much slower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, hey, I would feel completely un, I would feel completely like out of the fish out of water in academia and, so
Yeah.
I totally understand. All right, so a lot of people don't know if you've been watching this podcast watching whatever this thing is that I'm creating, Whimsy and Grit, that I've been working on this documentary for too long. 6.5 years, 6.5 years, if you can believe it. Um, and it is all about, it's called Through the Eyes of Others. And it's all about, I mean, really, it started with the question, can you live a happy life if you don't fulfill your childhood dreams? That's kind of where it came from. And Jessica Asch, who I have on here right now, is one of the protagonists in the story. And basically I go back home to Baltimore and I go through the lives of my high school theater friends to find out the meaning of life. Very simple, very, easy question to ask. And and so I wanted to ask you, Jess, because we're talking about, creative process and everything. And you've been so amazing through this whole process in terms of allowing me into your life, allowing me to film parts of your life, that maybe you wouldn't have let other people film. Um,
Mhm.
so what, like when I first came to you with the idea, what was your initial thoughts about letting a camera, we were actors, so it's one thing to have time to prepare, to create like, your character, you put a mask on, you put your costume on, like it's not you. And so what was it like to finally flip the script and have it really be you? But before you answer that, sorry, the first question, like what was your first thought when I came to you with this idea?
I mean, I was really excited about it. I mean, I think that we were all just like, wow, you want to make a film about essentially like our ensemble, our theater class, and coming back. And I think so I think I was excited to work on it, and but then I was also like, what is this? Like, because I know it kept evolving, and even still, like there's a process, and it shifts and changes, and so I a little bit the whole time had no idea what I felt like, I'm just gonna like continue just to go with this and just trust that I'm working with people who I love and who I feel
Mhm.
like are gonna take care of me and like protect us or protect this, like whatever this is. I felt like I was in like good hands, even though I didn't really, even though I was out of control, like I didn't have control of it.
Yeah, were there ever any moments where you felt worried or where you were, um because I mean, you were very strict about, not strict, but you had certain things that you knew you wanted to show and certain things you did not. Um, like what was that process in terms of, I mean, because we won't go too much into depth because you'll have to watch have to watch the documentary, but it's pretty obvious that your storyline was, wanting to become a mother, and also wanting, how we all were, how dreams and hopes change and evolve, and so yours was going from basically, um, wanting to be an actress to a drama therapist, and then always having this dream of being a mother, and then all of a sudden finding yourself, you know, it's difficult to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I forget what my question was, but
Well, I can kind of just,
yeah,
um, oh, like what I wanted to show on screen and what I didn't.
yes,
Uh,
thank you.
Um, I think so. I went through IVF to have my child, and it was, and Meg, you approached me eventually because I don't think it started like this because it's taken so many
No,
years. So when we first began filming, I had not started the IVF process, right?
right.
And right then the pandemic happened,
We
or
were
like
just, like,
so much
getting drunk
happened.
at the wedding, and we were getting drunk at the wedding and the reunion, and, like, it was really all about you being my best friend and, like,
Yes, right. That's
helping
was
me through it, so, yeah.
right. Right. And then when you asked me if I wanted to put this in the storyline, um, I think I did, and this kind of goes back interesting because this goes back to the question that you asked me before about how do you know when you want to share something with the world and let it out. I mean, I've thought about that a lot in terms of my storyline in the film, which is like, you will there's a shot of me, giving myself a needle and going through the whole IVF process, and I had to think about, like, do I want that out into the world? It was really incredibly painful for me. Also, when my daughter is older, like, I don't know, what is she going to think? What is she going to think when
Mhm.
she sees me and the pain that I went through? And
We might put
um
a little scene in, a short scene here.
look at that bag. Yes, the forbidden bag. I really hope this works.
Me too.
You spend so much time trying not to get pregnant when you're kids, and then it's so hard to get pregnant when you really want to get pregnant. Okay.
You got
One,
it.
2, 3. But there was something really therapeutic about filming, like, the IVF moments and the failed pregnancy test and the mirror of me touching, my stomach in the mirror and imagining me being pregnant. That felt cathartic and therapeutic, to me.
Mm.
There's other details around the way that I had my daughter, which feel private and still feel private, which belong to me and my daughter. And so that is some of the stuff that I don't want to share because it's not, it's mine and her story to tell.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah.
And I'm curious, me and Jane, who is a producer of this documentary, we've had conversations. I know, especially you and Jane, about having a sort of drama therapist on set for documentaries where you are kind of going through different traumatic moments, or even on film sets, really, where like somebody's being raped, for example, or somebody's being murdered, or like, you know, um, would was there anything that you think, looking back, I could have done differently? I know that's a hard question, but
Mm.
in terms of handling some of the topics, and yeah, we'll start with that one.
Oh, no, I felt like me and you checked in, like, even though you weren't there, you weren't present, you were in France for like the specific IVF scenes. I felt
Mhm,
like you checked in before, and that felt really just important to me about, and Jane and I checked in about like what I was and wasn't willing to share. Um, so that felt important to me. Um,
mm, yeah.
we remember that scene that we filmed with everybody at the reunion, and it just kind of got like
Oh my
wild,
god.
and at one point we were sitting together, and at one point you were like, "Okay, Jessica, do you remember that?" I don't know. We
Well,
there
I
was like one
wasn't
point where you were
able
like,
to.
"Yeah."
It was because I mean, people don't really know me who are watching this, but I when things get like super intense emotionally, I tend to want to like run. Um and the things were getting and this was my film that, like, Jane was like, "No, keep going. Like, this is the good stuff, you know?" And I should have been like, "Yeah, this is the good stuff," but I felt so uncomfortable, like out of my skin, wanting to just like run, because people were just like, I mean, it's great. Like, I can't wait for people to watch it because it does come across really, really strong. But there in the moment, people were crying, people were sharing trauma from their past, like, and we're all
And
sitting in
people
this like baya circle. Like, yeah, go ahead.
and people were actually talking about the real stuff that had happened between all of us that they hadn't shared before, with very specific people who had left or were absent or we couldn't rely on. Like, people actually started talking about real stuff with people on camera for the first time. And so it was really intense.
Yeah, and I'm like, "That's not what this film is about, guys." Like, of course, like, like, I'm here. It's also such a learning lesson for me, wanting to control what this film was about, like,
Mhm.
so much, and then really the art was trying to come out, and I wanted to, like, push it back in,
Yes.
but that's
Yes.
God, like, there was a couple moments like that during the filming where I just wish I had just shut the fuck up, or, like,
Mm.
just stopped trying to control, but I was a young director in the beginning and still am.
And
I
we
mean,
Yeah. And I think we're learning, and I think we're always learning about our relationship with control. I mean, I think that's one of the great things about being a creative arts therapist is like it's real, like it gets real messy, and like there's not a lot of control, and I don't know, it's nice, like um
mm, yeah,
just
have
to
you ever
welcome
felt
like
scared?
hmm?
Have you ever felt, like, scared in moments where it was starting to get out of control?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do in
Um
those moments?
I mean, um there was one moment where I was like a pretty young clinician, and I was working in a substance abuse clinic, in an inpatient and outpatient facility, and I was taking someone through like a meditation, um, and he started touching himself, and I just and it was pretty terrible, um, and I felt
Oh,
really violated, and I think I froze. I think I like literally kept going. I was like staring at him do it. I froze for like a few seconds, and then once I like came back to myself to say like this is a violation of me, I ended the session. I said, we're done, and I'm never going to meet with you again. This behavior is completely inappropriate, and I ran out to my supervisor. But that was
oh.
I was a very early clinician, but yes, there are things that happen. There are things that
Mm,
happen for
mhm.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think
And
about yeah.
sorry, no, go.
No, go, go.
I mean, I think this is why training is really important as a creative arts therapist, because I know how, like a lot of times with the Holocaust survivors too, or, I know we haven't talked a lot about, but in Parkland, Florida, when I would work with the kids, if people get flooded, which basically means like incredibly emotional, and they're not able, they're too in their body, we are trained, because the idea is that like we want to be in our body and we also want to be in our head, and that's right, like that's what balance is. As creative arts therapists, we're like, balance is your body and your brain, right? And how can we achieve that? And there are times when people get flooded and they're just in their body, and I have to basically shut it down and help them kind of come back up here to more of like a cerebral place in order to help them keep safe, to keep themselves safe, and also vice versa.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, Parkland's another good example where, so yeah, we were both in Parkland, Florida together, and, Jane called me because just thinking like, she knew I worked in social media and marketing and, wanted some advice on, how to get YouTube, it was the song that they wrote at first. So it started with the song.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, and then she's like, "Oh, do you want to come down here and help with like get the word out basically about this drama, this creative therapy camp, right?"
Hmm. Yep.
Um, and so I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I flew down to Florida from Paris. You fly down. We ended up being on NPR. We're like in this with literally like a couple weeks after all their friends were murdered. Like
And we're
this
we're 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 in the I think this is so important to talk about this part too. For the first camp, we are we're on location to where the trauma happened. So the program was happening at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, which is very intense to have a program be at the place where the trauma occurred. So
was that a was that a purposeful choice, or was that just like no other option?
I don't know, and I don't want to speak on Jane or Angela's behalf, but I think I think what happened is that they just, because they had filmed the music video and they had a relationship with obviously Shine MSD, who's the non-for-profit, who created it. And I think they just asked about space in the summer at the high
Mm.
school. And they just said, yeah, there's space. And once there was space, I don't think that they gave it that much thought.
So, just a little recap for people who maybe don't remember. It was 2018, Parkland, Florida. A kid comes into school, shoots 17 students.
Wounding many more.
Yeah, wounding many more. And I remember hearing about kids literally talking about walking over their like dead friend to like get out, and so it was incredibly traumatizing, and for us as well, as obviously the kids even more so. But this was a perfect example of using like the whole purpose was for you all to go in there and use creativity to help them heal from their trauma. And I just want to say as well, just to summarize my experience, was that I completely like shut down. And I don't know how you do this every day, but like tell us a little bit about that experience and how you thought to create this camp.
Yeah.
And what did you see come of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the idea, so Shine MSD is a non-for-profit in Parkland, Florida, and their kids, a lot of them are creative kids, and they created the song, and that I think the students wanted to start like a program or a camp that could use creativity as a form of healing. So that's what they wanted. And Jane was involved in the video, and she called you,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah,
then
I'll
to
promote
get,
it.
yeah, but then you said, have you spoke to Jessica? Because Jessica's a creative arts therapist
Oh,
who does
right.
this work.
That's
Yeah.
right, because you guys weren't really talking at that point. You weren't
No.
oh, I forgot about that.
Yes. You were like, this is what
Right.
Jessica does. Um,
Oh, so
yeah.
I put you together. I forgot
You
about that.
did, you.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
got the call, and I was, to be honest with you, I was so overwhelmed and nervous, and I knew I had to do it. This was a moment in my career where I just had to say yes. And I didn't know what it would look like, and I didn't know how I would get there. And I had never worked with victims of mass shootings before in my life. But I knew that I have worked with some of the most traumatizing populations ever. And so I just knew that I had to say yes and that I would figure it out.
So walk
And I
through what you ended up creating when you got there.
Yeah, so I decided, so to create, it would be a creative arts therapy camp. There would be a drama therapist, a music therapist, and an art therapist. And that we would, Jane was responsible, with the help of the community and everybody else, gathering survivors, and students, and that we would basically say, okay, like, what modality do you want to work with? Do you want to work with drama? Do you want to work with music? Do you want to work with art? And that for a few hours in the morning, Monday through Thursday, from like 9 a.m. to 12:30, we would all start together, like warming up, and then we would all go to our different modalities, and then we would come back for like a closing ritual. And it was quite intense. There's so much of this job to talk about, and we wrote about it. And University of Miami did a study on it, which is really incredible.
And you ended
And
up setting up for future mass shootings, right? Like how to process,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, we wrote a curriculum of, like, sadly, you know, um, what's one of the ways that you can help communities heal after a mass shooting, through the creative arts therapy. And what we had heard is, like, listen, I think something important to say about this is, Parkland, Florida, that shooting, there were so much, like, there were kids that turned their rage into activism. I think a lot about like, how do we channel this? How do we channel our feelings? And so there were so many kids who turned their rage into activism. And, those were the kids that were more like verbally comfortable, and and who had that like push to kind of go in and debate on national television, right? And like, that's the way that they wanted to channel their activism through. And then, there were other kids who wanted it to be just like much smaller and much more private, and who wanted it to be creative, and who wanted to, so we wrote songs, which, you can, like, there
Yeah,
were
we'll play the
beautiful.
song. We'll play the song here, like one of the there were so many different amazing songs, but we'll play the one,
There's
um,
fly like a butterfly. I'll send you a few of
lightning.
them.
Yeah, we'll put that in.
Yeah. Yeah. So there were songs that were created, there was theater and scenes that were created, there was artwork that was processed around, create who was I before the shooting versus who am I now versus who do I want to be. I mean, these, creative arts therapy is for people who just process their pain in a different way. And I felt like we really brought a lot of the community together, because what happens in a mass trauma, like, community gets fractured, because trauma fractures us. It moves us away, And part of the healing process is how can we connect back? And art and creativity is one of the things that naturally helps us create back to ourselves and other people.
And honestly, like what insight for those families to have thought to have brought this to the community as well. Like to have thought, having heard this song and then thinking, "Oh, like maybe this is something we could do to help the community." And then like it's just incredible to think how that all came together and how yeah, I mean it ended up in influencing so many other things as well.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean I felt like I was barely surviving even just, like, being there, but watching you guys, like, every day go to work, it was yeah, it was that's when you know, like, "Okay, she's in the right job, and I'm not supposed to do that." Like like, they can handle this shit. I'm like, "Yeah, this is definitely not for me," but thank God we have Jessica and, all the other
I mean,
people.
isn't that great? Isn't that great? Like, what's so great about life is that, like, once you figure out your gifts, like, then you can just like be in your gift. I mean, life is, I think, life is painful. Life can be sometimes painful before you figure out what your gift is. Cause like you're trying it on. You're like, does this work? Does this work? And it like painfully doesn't sometimes. And sometimes we try to like really like we try to stick on roles that just like are not for us. And it's so relieving when you can just finally own your gift and say,
Yes.
I am so good at this and I am like terrible at that. And there's relief. There's like such freedom. There's for me, there is freedom that I can say, "Oh, I'm terrible at that."
Yeah,
I don't that's
100%.
right, but I can do
Yeah.
this and I'm really good at it.
Yeah, I mean, I used to think it was like a weakness to not be able to do everything well or to but yeah, I think that comes with maturity as well as just understanding
Mhm.
that no, there are people who are really good at some things and you don't have to be really good. And I mean, a lot of the guests on the show, they do happen to have many, many gifts that, like, they have to move their art forward or to push something out or maybe
Yeah.
they don't have the gift, but they force themselves to, and I
Yeah.
think as you get older and more people maybe know you, then you can start to release some of those things that you've had to, like, bring on,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's,
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think, I mean, yeah, Parkland was just we never get a chance I never get a chance to talk about that actual experience, and I think it was just such an honor to have been able to have done that with you and with Jane, and then the relationships that we've created after that as well. I mean,
We
um
went to Sundance with them, right?
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking when I said all the things that come through it, I was thinking about the gun neutral thing, so
Yes. Yes, right. Gun Neutral was a program that came Abigail Disney's please correct me because I'm gonna butcher this, like Abigail Disney's production company, right?
yeah,
Film production
level forward, and yeah, Abigail Disney, who is part of the Walt Disney family, but, has I don't think has ever taken money from them,
yeah,
or she's an
or gives
actress
it
in the
away like crazy. That's
yeah, or speaks very openly about how CEOs should not be gaining, like, millions
mhm,
and millions while their employees are, and so she has, there was this production company, and I'm not sure if it was hers or not. I think it may have been called Level Forward, who, wanted to basically went to Sundance with this idea that, uh to get production companies to sign an agreement that says, "If you show us a gun on screen, you will add a line item in your budget that will
mm,
give money back to the arts, like, the arts
yeah,
communities,
yeah,
underfunded arts communities."
yes.
I just thought that's, like, so brilliant.
So brilliant, so brilliant. And I was kind of asked to go to Sundance or to help to give a speech about yeah, like what are filmmakers like really thinking about like the conscious decision about showing a gun on screen and really having filmmakers just think more thoughtfully about like if you show a gun on screen or if you show 20 guns on screen, like what is the need for that? And is that like a necessity? And just to just also talk about the mental health impact and just like the power that artists and filmmakers have around, you know, the aesthetic that they create, and also to like be mindful of the impact that it has, you know.
Yeah. Maybe I think I still have a video of you as well from giving that speech, so
Mm.
I might share something. So for you, like what is next for Jessica Asch? Do we've talked about reinventing our lives over and over again. You said this line in the documentary, that's why I always think about it because I've watched all those scenes like a million times, but like reinventing our lives and what does that look like? What does the future hold for Jessica Asch? Like, do you see yourself continuing this work forever, for the rest of your life, or do you see it evolving? Like, do you have any ideas?
Yeah. Yeah, I see myself doing this for the rest of my life. I don't want to change careers at all. I'm so fulfilled in this work.
Mm,
But I do miss the stage and I do miss theater. And I miss performing. And I have my own creative practice that looks really small and different, but I want to be on stage more.
mm,
Um, and then I want to, and this has always been like a dream of mine, and I moved, now I'm in Philadelphia. I want to start a theater company. I want to start a therapeutic, like a professional, well, a professional therapeutic theater company where you don't have to be a professional actor, but I want to take people through like the creative process of, first of all, what are we all here for? What are the common themes in the room? And like ultimately, like what do we want to create a piece of theater about?
about,
Um,
yeah.
and then we all have to agree, obviously, and then you know we'll all it'll be a divisive piece. Like I mean, like we'll write it together, and I'll direct it, and it's like a therapeutic theater company. And so I definitely want to get that going.
I love that. Is that like 2026 or?
No, I mean,
Mm,
it's probably not next year. It's probably like in 2 years. I've been since moving to Philadelphia, I've been running more groups about like infertility, and running groups about motherhood. I
yeah.
tend to like when I move through spaces which I'm in and are hard, it's where I pull my energy from. And so I'm like, well, this needs work. And then I move to a different space and I just because it's what
That's
resonates
great.
for me. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to get something out of it
Yeah.
as well, right? I mean,
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah. It's yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's one thing that you are still learning as an artist?
Oh, to turn my critic, to dial her back, just to like I think I'm just like always in the relationship with a critical part of me that's like there's times where I can be real I like I can be really messy with people, and I can really encourage people to be messy and talk about the therapeutic benefits of what it is to be messy. And I have a harder time um in my creative work like letting it just be messy. So I think I'm always kind of working on like dialing the critical voice back. Or at least being in dialogue with it, not having it be so big.
And is there anything that you would tell a young artist? Yeah, what would be some piece of advice that you would want to give a young artist from everything you've been through up to this point?
Mm. Um, um, like keep studying, like just like keep don't like when you chase the lights and like the glamour, like, does that work for, sometimes does that work for people? Sure, there's been people who that worked for, but to really, I think later on in life that becomes empty. Like, even if it does work, it eventually turns into emptiness. And I think that if you can create, if you can master like a real practice and a real love and like a real centeredness around art or your creative process, then you will move through life being a creative person, feeling held, more held and protected and loved.
Hmm.
Yeah. Take care of yourself, like figure out ways to take care of yourself through this because it's hard. So
Hmm.
yeah, establish that early on if you can.
And is there any last words before we wrap up?
No, just that like I'm so appreciative of you having me on just to talk about creative arts therapy because I don't think it's talked about enough, and I do think that healing can happen in healing looks so different for so many people. And I think creative arts is just such a brilliant tool to help imagine our lives looking different.
I wish everybody knew the power of creating and in the healing process. And so thank you for doing what you're doing. And
Thank
I
you
always
for
joke. Thank you.
doing.
No, I mean, I always joke that, without you as my therapist growing up, I think that I would be in a very different spot. So I know I've benefited from it even before you studied. So, but, and is there anywhere people can find you and your work? Okay, so
And then
jessicaasch.com.
JessicaAsch.com, and then Psychology Today. If you just put my name in, yeah, that's it.
Oh, you write articles?
No. Oh, just that, like, you want to, yeah. I'm just up on Psychology Today. I have written one.
I'm like, wait, there's something I don't know about you. No, she has written articles, people. She's been studied. This is a brilliant woman and my best friend. I love you.
Love you
so much.
Thank you.
Mwah.
Mwah. Bye.